What if I told you the most powerful nation in the world didn't even want to fight? That for most of World War I, the United States stood on the sidelines, watching empires burn and millions die, while quietly profiting in the background. And yet, when it finally joined the war, it didn't just help end it, it reshaped the entire global order forever. But was America the hero or the opportunist? Welcome to Shadow Force. Subscribe now for untold truths and military secrets they don't teach in class. Let's break down how the US entered the First World War late, but left the battlefield as a global superpower.
Wait, you think you already know the truth about the Middle East? Think again. This isn't just a story of war, oil, and religion. It's a game of power, scripted by empires, funded by fear, and edited by silence. The US didn't just step in. It helped redraw borders, prop up dictators, and trigger revolutions. So, before you scroll away, ask yourself, what if everything you've been told was the cover story? Welcome to Shadow Force, where we don't just retell history, we expose the shadow behind it.
In 1914, when Europe erupted into the bloodiest war it had ever seen, the United States watched from across the Atlantic with detached caution. President Woodrow Wilson declared neutrality, and the majority of Americans agreed. Why spill American blood for European monarchs? Back home, the economy boomed. The US sold weapons, munitions, and food to Allied powers. Wall Street banks lent billions to Britain and France. Morally neutral, but economically very involved. Some called it wise, others called it hypocrisy. In 1915, a German U-boat torpedoed the British ocean liner Lusitania, killing 1,198 civilians, including 128 Americans. Germany argued the ship carried weapons, and they were right. But the American public didn't care about fine print. Newspapers exploded with outrage. Still, Wilson refused to declare war. He believed peace could be preserved through diplomacy. Yet behind closed doors, America edged closer to war, building military stockpiles and tightening economic ties with Britain. Then came 1917. The German Empire made a fateful gamble: resume unrestricted submarine warfare. That meant sinking any ship, even American ones, entering war zones. Simultaneously, a British intelligence leak stunned the US public. It was the Zimmermann telegram, a secret proposal from Germany to Mexico: join us in war against the US, and we'll help you reclaim Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. That was it. Wilson asked Congress for war. The neutral giant was going to war, not just for security, but, as Wilson grandly declared, to make the world safe for democracy. America in 1917 was militarily weak. The standing army was under 200,000. But in 18 months, the US would raise a force of over 4 million soldiers. That's the scale of the US war machine once unleashed. With speed and scale, America built ships, guns, and training camps. For many Americans, this was a patriotic duty. But for black soldiers and immigrants, it was complex. They were expected to fight abroad for a democracy they didn't fully enjoy at home. It's also when the US military began to show its global reach, deploying men, material, and might thousands of miles from its shores. By 1918, US troops began pouring into France. The Allies were exhausted. Russia had collapsed. Germany was launching its final offensives. The arrival of fresh American divisions shocked German command. Though not always as experienced, American soldiers fought with morale, numbers, and endless supplies. In battles like Cantigny, Belleau Wood, and the Meuse-Argonne offensive, they helped tip the scales. It wasn't just manpower, it was psychological. America's entry crushed German hopes of outlasting the Allies. Back home, America was fighting another kind of war, the war of minds. The government created the Committee on Public Information, spreading propaganda to sell the war. Dissenters were arrested. Newspapers were censored. The Espionage and Sedition Acts criminalized criticism of the government or the war effort. Some called it patriotism. Others called it a betrayal of American freedom. And yes, corporations profited. War meant contracts, control, and money. This wasn't just a war for liberty. It was the start of the military-industrial complex. On November 11, 1918, the war ended. Germany signed an armistice. Europe was in ruins. And America? It had arrived on the world stage like never before. Wilson pushed for a new world order, the League of Nations. Though the US never joined it, the idea marked America's growing voice in world affairs. Economically, militarily, and diplomatically, the US was now a pillar of the global system. Yet critics noted something darker. The war built wealth and power, but also surveillance, propaganda, and inequality at home. Was this the cost of empire? The US lost over 116,000 soldiers in a war that started without it, but it gained something far greater: permanent influence. World War I was the first time America projected force beyond its hemisphere, and it wouldn't be the last. From Korea to Iraq, this was the beginning of the American century. But was this power used wisely? Was the US a reluctant savior, or a calculated opportunist? Did it make the world safe for democracy, or safe for its own interests? These are the questions we must ask today, because the echoes of World War I are still with us, on every battlefield where the US raises its flag. If you found this eye-opening, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Shadow Force for more military deep dives, untold truths, and critical takes they don't want you asking. From the trenches of World War I to the oil fields of today's Middle East, this is the side of history you were never meant to see. Drop a like if you support independent content, and tell us in the comments, was America the hero of World War I, or something more complicated?
Still think the Middle East just spiraled out of control? Or maybe someone lit the fuse and left the scene. If you're ready for the stories behind the headlines, hit like, subscribe, share Shadow Force. Because history is never neutral, and neither are we.